The Agenda in the Summer with Nam Kiwanuka is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.
Summer music festivals are back. So to celebrate all this July, the Agenda in the Summer revisits conversations with a diverse cast of musicians and music experts. Tonight, Steve Paikin's 2016 discussion about the pop music factory.
We've all heard music lovers say they don't write them like they used to. Yes, Tin Pan Alley's a thing of the past, but today's hit songs very often come from a very small circle of producers and songwriters churning out the chart toppers. Is that any way to make great music? Let's find out. From John Seabrook, he's New Yorker staff writer, author of The Song Machine, Inside the Hit Factory. Martina Sorbara is here, singer, songwriter, and at the front of the band, Dragonette. Maylie Todd, singer, songwriter, and producer. And Alan Cross, music journalist and host of the radio program, The Ongoing History of New Music. It's on Toronto FM radio station 102.1, The Edge. And good to have everybody here at TVO tonight. I want to start, John, by just you sort of laying out the groundwork here, which is your book, a really fascinating behind-the-scenes look at how these sort of hit factories churn out the hits these days. You do call it a hit factory, which doesn't sound good. Why do you call it a hit factory?
Well, mainly because they exist to create singles. There's no interest in creating albums. I think the big difference between the songs of old is whereas songs of old might have started with a melody writer and a lyric writer sitting around a piano and then coming up with something that was then arranged and produced and played. Now it's almost exactly the opposite. Producers start with tracks that they can make many of at the same time, send them out to these people called hook writers or top line writers that put melodic hooks on top. And then the lyrics come. And so it's almost exactly the reverse. And you can just make, in the amount of time it would have taken you to make 10 songs, you can make 100 songs.
So the creative process is totally different today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thus the hit factory.
Yeah.
If I can steal another lyric, Alan, how long has this been going on?
This has been happening for a very long time. We're simply reverting back to the time when there were professional songwriters and professional performers. So you would commission a song to be done by some guy in Tin Pan Alley or somewhere in England, and they would have pluggers who would go out into the vaudeville or music hall audiences trying to get the singers to perform their songs. And that would result in lots of sheet music sales and performances and eventually recorded music and mechanical royalties and everything that came later. So this isn't something new. This is something that's happened before. The professional songwriter separated from the performer. When the Beatles and Dylan and everybody else came along in the 60s, I guess maybe with Buddy Holly, he would probably be the first real guy who wrote his own songs and then played them. It became the thing to do your own stuff, to perform your own stuff. So we've been living in this world of the singer-songwriter for about 50, 55 years, but that was an anomaly over the long course of history.
Martina, give us a sense of how you do it. Are you more the Lennon-McCartney, two people get inspired and just do it like that, or is it a more collaborative effort with lots more people coming in?
So I started off writing music by myself, very personal thing. I would go, lock myself in a room and write a song. Nobody else was allowed in, even in the house while it was happening. And then I started a band with somebody and we started writing songs together. That was a really new experience for me to let anybody into that process.
And that's two people now.
Yeah,
okay.
Track writer, and I was a top line writer, which is putting the music on top of the tracks. And then in the last couple of years, I've been going into rooms. I've been going down to LA or to London or New York and getting into the room with a stranger and writing a song, just generally having no agenda, but sometimes being like, let's write a song for this person or
one
that person.
One stranger or lots of strangers?
Sometimes it's two. I prefer the one stranger because,
okay.
And it's a very interesting process, and you learn something new every time.
So that works. That is a good creative process.
Well, it didn't work for me at the beginning. I was completely useless because I was so insecure and I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to sing anything that might not be good or suggest any lyrics that would be weird. And then I realized very quickly that the only way to get through it is just to completely open yourself up, not be ashamed of anything, just every idea that comes to mind. If it's the wrong idea, it leads to the right idea.
Maylee, how does it work for you?
Right now, I'm doing all the production and writing the lyrics and singing the songs. So I'm just working in Ableton and working in my apartment, in my studio apartment. Pre to kind of Ableton LAN, like in box, all in the computer, was I played instruments. So and I still do, but I played harp and I played guitar and I had like a band. And the writing process, I'd have songs, I'd have chords, and I'd bring it to the band, and then they would add or take away pieces of the song.
But it's just you writing.
Yeah.
In terms of the creative process, is that the way you have to do it?
I guess I don't have to, but I choose that because I guess I'm really interested in having a point of view, having something to say, and then
That comes from inside you.
That comes from inside me, yeah.
You ever heard of the song Hello?
Adele's song?
No, not that
Or
Hello.
Lionel Richie's song?
Not that Hello. Your Hello.
Yes.
How did that come about?
That was an internet collaboration. That was somebody I had worked with. I met him at a festival in Australia, Martin Solveig, and we did one song together. And then later on, he sent me that track, just the track, and he said, we need a top line for this track, and I really want to do it with you. And he also sent me the music video that was already filmed for the song.
How many hits on YouTube?
I don't even know. Lots. And it's a very huge song.
If I told you 61 million, would you believe it?
No.
Yeah, 61 million from what I hear.
Yeah, that's a
That's a lot.
song.
Yeah, where's the check? But the inference we draw, Alan, when you hear this song came out of a hit factory, is that it's somehow creatively less. Is it wrong to draw that inference?
Depends on your personal music aesthetics. I have a real hard time with Music Factory songs because they are so perfect, because you have so many people working on them. And I believe that in a lot of art, there is beauty in imperfection. It's real, rather than being tuned to the absolute nth degree of perfection. People don't sound like that. There are no talents like that. It is a complete fabrication. One of the things that we're not talking about is why we're doing this. Why do songs have to be perfect?
What's the answer?
The answer is monetarily.
Excuse me?
It's all about money, because it is it's impossible to guarantee a hit. And with record labels selling much less music than they ever used to, they need assurances that their big artists, especially their big artists, or at least the artists that they invest a lot of money in, are going to have a very good chance of having a popular song. In which case, you want to put all your eggs in as many baskets as you possibly can with this artist. And they will do not only the hook and top line approach to songwriting and hiring, a Dr. Luke or a Max Martin or any other of these guys to work on the music, but what they will also do is put it through algorithmic songwriting computer programs like Hit Song Science. Hit Song Science is a Spanish program that takes all the attributes of all the hit songs ever released since 1955. And it compares a song to those attributes, to those characteristics. And at the end, it spits out whether or not it thinks that song is going to be a hit. So the idea of making sure, as much as you possibly can, that any given song is going to resonate with the general public is very, very important to the record label.
So, John, am I wrong, but that process, as mathematical and algorithmic as Alan has made it sound, that does not sound like inspiration. It does not sound like talent. Am I wrong to draw that conclusion?
Well, the thing is that even hit song science doesn't always work. I mean, you can try to be as scientific about what makes a hit as you possibly can, and you can do a lot of testing, and yet there are still, for example, that song Radioactive that Imagine Dragons did, that was a huge hit. That song did not score at all well on any of these tests. The label didn't even put it out as a single, and yet it became one of the most successful songs of the last 5 years. So there is still room for magic. There's always room for magic. There's always that sense that a hit song somehow snatched a little bit of magic out of the air that was in that room that day that you couldn't do sort of mechanistically or scientifically. And I don't think that's ever going to change.
Sheldon, can we play this clip right now? I'm at number 6 on page 2. This is, you've got basically, as we learned in your book, a lot of the same, hit factory songwriters working with the same producers, and the allegation is, of course, that you end up getting songs that all sound the same. Take a look at this.
Everywhere I'm looking now, I'm surrounded by your embrace. Baby, I can see your halo. You know you're my saving grace. I want you to know that it doesn't matter where we take this road. Someone's gotta go.
Yeah, so the story there, it was actually this gentleman named Ryan Tedder, who's a major hit maker, wrote that track and sent it to both Kelly Clarkson and Beyonce, I think accidentally. Beyonce did the Halo, so the top line is different for Halo, but you can certainly hear the similarities. That song came out first, and when Kelly Clarkson heard it, she wanted to pull Already Gone from her album because she thought everybody would think that she just ripped off Halo. But when Already Gone came out, it was almost as big a hit as Halo, and no one even cared or maybe noticed. But those two songs are written from the same track.
They had to notice. They may not have cared, but they had to notice.
If you put them side by side, you can notice, and this is the thing about like YouTube mashups, it's now possible to tell how close songs are to each other, and they are, but in a way maybe they always have been, but we haven't had the tools to compare them the way we can now.
Well, we're also running into an issue where a lot of these hit songs have multiple hooks, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hooks. So we're burning through hooks faster than we ever had.
So you have to reuse.
Hooks,
So you have,
Alan, hooks meaning what?
hooks are the most identifiable part of a song. It usually shows up in the chorus. Sometimes it shows up in the verse, a little bit of one. But now with the factory people, they realize that the hook is the thing that burrows into your brain and makes the song familiar. So if one hook works well, 2 has to work better, and 3 is even better than that. So if you listen to a Katy Perry song, you can just count the hooks all the way through it.
Mainly as an artist, does this offend you?
Not really. I used to be offended by this stuff. But
Why are you calmer about this now?
I guess I just don't care as much. For me, mainstream and pop culture, I think my issue with that is that it's only giving one very specific type of, I guess, artistry, I guess, if we can call it that. So my problem is I like variation because people can think differently and make decisions based on their choices. They're not limited. So I think I think being kind of a super weirdo, I'm always like fighting for like some kind of platform and fighting for all the underdogs. So
You're a super weirdo?
yeah.
Yeah? I mean, I just met her, so I can't confirm that independently.
Where do we go? I mean, I don't even know. Okay, so for example, the shows that I put on, one show in particular is called Virtual Womb, and I put on these unconventional experiences. So you walk through a large vagina. I don't know if I can say this on air.
I just did. Yeah.
And then everybody brings their blanket and they lie on the ground and they take in the projections that are on the ceiling that coincide with the live music that's happening, which is all in the box, but also I'm playing harp live and keys and all those sorts of things.
This didn't come out of a factory.
No.
This didn't come out of a factory. This came out of this whole.
I'm pretty sure I saw that at a Sinatra concert 20 years ago.
Oh, maybe,
sure.
maybe.
Maybe
History always repeats itself.
I could be wrong on that, but I'm
maybe
pretty
it was
sure.
Sinatra coming out, being born.
I don't know. I don't know. Tell me, Martina, again, based on your experience, do you think a song is better when it comes out of an artist's, a songwriter's soul as opposed to being written by a committee?
I don't think there's an answer to that. I don't think there's a yes or no. I think that there is always schlock being made. There's so much forgettable music, and then there's the stuff that pokes out. There's the stuff that pokes out from the factory. Out of all of the stuff they're regurgitating, there's the one that's like, wow, that's really interesting. Because I've been in the room with those kind of people, and they are rearranging songs in interesting ways. They're like, what if we start with the chorus? Or what if the chorus goes, really down instead of way up? Or,
So even in committee, there is a creative process happening.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they are aware that stuff has to kind of poke up above the rest of the forgettable stuff. And I think it's the same with people who are writing their own songs. they can't write a million amazing emotional songs that really grip everybody.
Adele can.
Well, I think Adele has a lot of help. She doesn't.
She's got plenty of help.
She's got.
She does, eh?
I'm sure there's a committee with that, and I think part of the artistry for if we're talking about the artists who are singing these songs, part of their artistry is choosing the right songs and then singing them in a way that is convincing us that that's their song, and that is a hard job. I can't do that. I can only sing my songs.
I thought Adele does not write her own stuff. I mean,
Well,
she
she
writes some of her own
collaborates,
stuff.
but all of those songs. Greg Kurstin is the main songwriter on most of those songs. Max Martin wrote one of those songs. All of those songs are co-written.
Do you think the audience prefer, never mind what they prefer to believe, but do you think they actually prefer, in terms of making a connection with the artist, that the artist write the song?
I think they want to believe that the artist wrote the song. I think it makes the song more powerful to believe that the artist woke up one morning, sat down at the piano, and the song just poured out of them.
Right.
Of course, you want to believe that, but really, that doesn't happen all that often. Maybe
Alan,
it
does it
happens
matter to
once
you?
in a while.
Well, it matters to me, but again, I'm a pop snob, a rock snob. So, but you know, one of the things that we need to keep into perspective here is that what we're talking about is pop music, which by its very nature is ephemeral and evanescent. It is of the moment. So we consume it and then we move on. There's the stuff that's meant for quick consumption, for casual music fans, for people who want to sing along as they're driving and tap their fingers on the steering wheel. There are billions of them. It's a huge, huge market, and they need to be served. And they get bored very quickly, so you have to give them a continuous turnover of songs that they can sing along to and tap their fingers to. These songs generate a tremendous amount of money for their labels and their publishers and everything else, which is then plowed back into the music industry. And that may go to this new garage band out of Leeds that somebody is really interested in, but they're pretty raw and rough and will only be a niche act. So this music is important to the health of the ecology of the music industry. It doesn't mean that all of us have to like it.
But Martina, do you think the people who listen to your music need to believe that that music, you woke up one day and it just spilled out of your heart and you wrote it down somewhere and recorded it? Isn't that part of the connection you make with your audience?
I believe that, but I don't know that they care. But I do. I write my own music. My niece last night, she asked me, I was listening to a new song that just got mixed. It just got sent to me. And she's like, do you write your own music?
How old is she, your niece?
She's 16.
16, and so this mattered to
And
her.
so, well, I don't know, that she didn't know surprised me. And the fact that she asked me the question means that she doesn't think that her idols write their own music necessarily. That was my take. Maybe that's not right, but that's what I thought. It was interesting just because I was coming here the next day and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But so I don't know if people care. I think they assume that the decision to sing that song is significant enough.
Can a singer-songwriter make it big in an era when audiences want to listen to, we've talked about this, a single song rather than a full album? Alan, what do you think?
This is a problem that is plaguing the music industry. Yeah. The album is only really something that's been with us since the middle 60s, since about 1965, Dylan, the Beatles, and a few others. So up until then, it was all individual songs. I mean, and you had enough, once you had enough individual singles, you put them on an album, packaged them out that way. The album is a retail event. It is something that record labels can build a marketing and distribution plan around. And then it has a release date where you go out and you try to convince the public to buy a piece of plastic or 13 tracks from iTunes or whatever it is. But iTunes came along, Steve Jobs came along, and basically blew this whole thing out of the water. And the music industry has nobody to blame but themselves, because they got rid of the single towards the end of the 90s, and they were still charging us $20 for a CD when there was only one good song on it. So Napster came along, and we got into this idea of a la carte selection of music.
And also that music should be free.
And that music should be free, and that iTunes came and broke the albums up into its individual parts. And since then, we have an entire generation of people who have very little affinity to the concept of the album. I just want that song for this moment, that song for this mood, this song for that activity.
To bring it back into the factory, I had an interesting conversation with somebody I was working with, the factory songwriting and the album. What happens is that the people trying to write all these singles, they end up with, you know, a huge bulk of singles, and instead of people writing an album that actually has, you know, peaks and valleys and takes you on a journey, what it is,
Oh, it's hit,
an
hit,
album
hit,
is
hit, hit.
like the single, and then the song that was tried to be the single but wasn't, and so they all kind of have this kind of
So what's been
in your
lost?
face. Well, having a package. That's the saddest thing for me, I think, because I love listening to albums, and I still just listen to albums, and I know that's not the way of the future, and you can't fight it. That's just what's going to happen. The album is going to die. That's what's
But
happening.
I do think that something new is going to come, and it's the playlist that's made by the DJ or the producer using a lot of different artists, but the same producer. So each song will be kind of like a single, but with a different artist, but it'll be all one aesthetic, driven by a producer or a DJ rather than by an artist, and put together as a playlist and put out on Spotify. But basically,
Yeah.
it's sort of like an album of the future.
Oh, it just announced that Apple Music is now going to be putting out DJ remixes and mashups. So that's
So, yeah.
going toward, to your point.
Yeah,
So maybe
I think
we
that's
haven't-
where we're going.
Maybe we haven't lost anything here then? Maybe the album survives?
It's
different.
changing. It's changing.
It's transitional. We're in a transitional time. Yeah.
Is it, you know, I don't want to sound like a fuddy-duddy here, but is it better today?
Steve, you are a funny.
I know I'm a fuddy-duddy. You know what? You've known me for 20 minutes, and it's so true. You've got me nailed already. But is it better today?
It's different.
It's
gotta-
different.
you gotta
I'd say
ask.
better.
I hate the idea of it being like, oh, things used to be better in the past. It's like there's always a yo-yo effect, and this one thing happens and it's kind of ugly and uncomfortable, but there's something else happening on the other side that's kind of interesting and cool and exciting.
I think, Martina, that's what people say when they don't want to admit that it was better back then.
No, I
No?
don't agree. I don't
No?
agree.
Every
I think-
generation has a biological right to believe that the music of their youth is the greatest music ever made.
Fair enough.
And what we're seeing now is, I mean, it doesn't matter what we say sitting around this table. We're not going to be the ones determining the future of music,
Right.
both creation and consumption.
These two might be.
Not in the future. I mean, we're all going to age out of it. The people that we got to watch
No,
right
I'm
now,
not.
me neither, but
Forever.
are the ones who are
I've been drinking this water.
9, 10, 11, 12 years old right now, who have never known life without smartphones, who have never known life without tablets, who have never known life without broadband internet, who have never known life without free, instantaneously available music.
And maybe never bought music either.
Yeah.
so-
Yeah.
Will never buy music. So, what are they going to do with their artistic aesthetics, if that's not redundant, moving forward as they become songwriters or song creators or performers? How is their experience being shaped and formed and informed by their relationship to technology today? That's going to be interesting.
And you know, I'll just add to that, what's also interesting is that the song itself, the form of the song, is a very conservative medium that really hasn't changed that much through all these changes. So you still have, you know, a verse and a chorus and a verse and a chorus and maybe a bridge, and it's usually 3.5 minutes long. And in spite of all this stuff, that kernel
template is
kind of
still the form,
remains.
yeah.
One thing that is changing, though, is that big data that we get back from the streaming music services like Spotify will tell you that the average person will listen to an unfamiliar song for like 7 to 10 seconds before they go, nope,
Right.
next.
That's why all the hooks are in there.
Well, that's changing the nature of songwriting. So the hooks are
Right.
coming sooner. The choruses are coming sooner.
Right.
And that is in response to human behavior and our diminishing attention span.
Yeah.
How is that going to change things going forward?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a quote from Leonard Cohen, who is an 80-year-old I have heard of, describing his songs as lasting as long as a Volvo, 30 years long. Are any of present company accepted, of course, are any of today's pop stars going to be played on whatever format 30 years from now because they've been that impactful?
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Who are we going to be listening to in 30 years?
I mean, I don't really listen to a lot of pop music, so I might not be the best spokesperson here, but I feel like if you said that, you know, the best music is of its time or of your youth, I think if you grew up with Lady Gaga and if you grew up with Britney Spears, then whatever experiences you had with those songs, you'll probably remember them when you're an older
I think
goat.
the biggest stars will survive, but it's the ones, and we're talking about 3 or 4 per year. It's the ones below that we won't hear of again. I mean, all you have to do is watch the MTV Music Video Awards or the Grammy Awards or the People's Choice Awards. We were watching this year, and my wife says, how many of these people are we going to be talking about next year? And the answer is
very few.
1,
Yeah.
2, and that's it. They're all going to disappear.
But do you think that the percentage of like artists with sustained visibility is going to be less in 30 years than.
I don't know. I mean, we're burning through music faster than we've ever burned through before.
And we're buying into their personalities less, I guess.
Yeah, and our emotional investment
Yeah.
in the artist's career and persona. I mean, there are exceptions like Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift and Adele, but if you think back to 1999, 2000, 2001, I mean, turn on the radio, you don't hear a lot of Backstreet Boys anymore. You don't hear a lot of NSYNC anymore. I mean, and these were the biggest artists of their day.
Also written by Swedes. By
Also
the way.
written by Swedes.
I think artists today are more like, the big ones are more like brands, and it's not just about selling records, it's about selling products, it's about being able to go on television. All the ways that music now has to make money because record sales have declined. There's a certain kind of artists that really can do that, and I feel like they're almost like Colgate and Palmolive or something, as much as they are like John Lennon.
I think we will probably be talking about Taylor Swift because she is such a big machine, which happens to be the name of her company, her label.
Yeah.
I think we'll be talking about her. But one of the things that will be very interesting going forward in the development of all these artists and their careers, I mean, I think we'll be talking about Adele. She's another one. Beyonce for sure. Right. What happens, and maybe John can address this, what happens when we tap out Sweden? When Max Martin has nothing left.
Nothing left to say.
But this is the thing, they have created a system. So Max Martin has a whole company called MXM, which is full of his proteges. He looks around, he finds the younger, edgier people, and he brings them in, and it's a real mentor protege. It's almost like a medieval guild, and they work under him for 6 or 7 years, and then they launch their own. So
Yeah, I don't think we're getting to the end of that well.
no. I mean, in a way, he's already created the next generation of people who are already successful.
The one thing we are getting to the end of, sadly, is our discussion. Prompted by The Song Machine Inside the Hit Factory. That's John Seabrook's book. John, thank you for making the trip up from, are you in Brooklyn? From Brooklyn,
I'm in
New York?
Brooklyn.
Thanks for making
Shout
the
out
trip
to
up.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, shout out for Brooklyn. And thanks as well to Alan Cross, FM 102.1 The Edge. Martina Sorbera, up at the front of the band of Dragonette. Maylee Todd, singer, songwriter, producer, and once again, John Seabrook. Great to have you all on the program tonight.
The Agenda in the Summer with Nam Kiwanuka is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.
The Agenda in the Summer with Nam Kiwanuka is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.